Okay. All right, so let me make sure we've got everything going on here. It's redirecting. All righty, so here we are live once again on Facebook Live. I am Reba Haas with Team Reba, Remax Metro East Side, and the radio show Open House with Team Reba. And I got this guy over here again with me.
That's me, Eric Aasness with Homebridge Financial Home Mortgage.
Yes, so
And
we
Open House with Team Reba.
Yeah, and Open House with Team Reba, which our show will be on tomorrow from 2 to 3 p.m. on AM 1590. So we are continuing on our live updates of what's going on in the markets, both on the real estate and mortgage side of things. Mostly we've been trending pretty stable on a lot of what's happening right now, which is interesting because there's a lot of people talking about volatility. Now there's volatility in the offering of products, and that's a lot of what Eric's been talking about over the last several weeks. Eric, why don't you start off with what's going on this week? What has anything changed since last week?
Well, with interest rates, they're staying, shockingly stable. We're sitting around the national average for a 30-year fixed rate is hovering right around 3.25% for a conventional loan. We're around, I was just looking at 15-year fixed rates are down to about 2.75% for a 15-year fixed rate loan. 15s.
Okay.
And FHA and VA are still hovering right around 2.75%. So we're getting a lot of inquiries from folks with VA loans. And if you are a veteran, if you've never used your VA benefits, it's definitely worth checking out because those rates are ridiculously low. Also, if you are a veteran and have any service-related disability, this sounds weird, but even 1%, VA waives the funding fee, which can be expensive. And VA charges a funding fee on loans. Typically it's financed, but if there's a service-related disability, it can be waived. Or if you're active duty, if you're active in the military now and you have a Purple Heart, the funding fee is waived, which is really cool. That's a fairly new law that was passed. It's called the Blue Water Navy bill that was passed about a couple months ago.
Okay, so Eric, you have mentioned before that it's a fairly expensive fee. Can you give an example of kind of like, is there a particular range or what's that look like?
Yeah, if you're using it for the very first time and you're purchasing a home, it's 2.3% of your loan amount. It is typically financed, so it's just added to the balance of your loan. However, the seller can also pay it, if you can negotiate that. If you're refinancing, it's about 3.3%. It's expensive.
Okay, so let's say somebody has a $400,000 loan. What's that going to look like
for
the people here?
$8,800. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
okay.
Yeah. The good news about that funding fee is that is what is used to finance the GI Bill. So it's money from VA loans that's used to put our veterans through college, pay for the college. So it's
interesting. So
for the cause.
The purchase of a home funds the potential for education.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
It's good. Interesting.
Good deal.
I would be very curious to know how many of those veterans who have used one have also used the other. I wonder if they were ever calculated out.
I hope it's a big number.
Me too. Me too. Absolutely. So, okay. All right. You said, what was the conventional 30, did you say?
We're sitting right around 3.25%.
Okay. So that's staying consistent.
Pretty stable. Yeah. Pretty stable. Yeah. Yesterday, the Fed spent around a little over $6 billion propping up the mortgage markets. It's averaged about that amount every day this week. The unemployment numbers are eye-popping, but the markets seem to pretty much shrug them off. So we're just kind of working our way through this. We are more and more economists are stating as we come out of this pandemic that we're not expecting a V-type recovery where it went sharply down and comes sharply back. We're not quite that optimistic that we'll have a rapid recovery. It might take a little bit of time. And if you just think about like a lot of the businesses and restaurants that are being limited to 50% capacity, things like that.
Yeah.
Some of them are going to really struggle with that. Some of them are not going to be able to come back, given the
Right. Well, and even if they do come back, they'll need fewer staff,
exactly. Yeah,
right? So the
exactly.
unemployment numbers for some of those areas could
That's
be.
right. I do want to give an update also on forbearance.
Mhm.
And, there's
Oh
over
yeah, please do.
4 million mortgages in forbearance right now. Uh, I, I would caution people, if you have a way to avoid it, please avoid it. We still do not have all the information yet on what our options will be for your mortgage after you've been through a forbearance. Just this morning,
What was the
we
number you said it was? Did you say 14 million?
4.1 million.
4
Yeah,
point million.
4 million mortgages currently in forbearance. It's a big number, and that adds up to about $850 billion in mortgages.
Yeah.
So the problem is that once you go into forbearance, how do you get out? And because this is not a forgiveness program, you have to pay back the payments that are missed. How do you do that? Well, there's a couple options. Number one, and this will vary, so you really need to check with your loan servicer. But one option is you just go on a payment plan and you make those payments back, which means doubling up on your mortgage payments or some sort of a combination, paying a little bit more than your regular payment. The second option would be to have the mortgage modified. There's a third possible option that's just coming around this week also. It's a new development. They're talking about doing what they call it, I don't shoot the messenger, it's called a secretary's lien. And basically what a secretary's lien is they take the amount of missed payments from the forbearance and they essentially put those as a second mortgage on your property at an interest rate of 0. And that second mortgage would be paid off at some point in the future if you refinanced or if you sell the home. So it's
What? I
not,
mean, okay, why do you say don't shoot the messenger? Isn't that
it's called a
maybe?
secretary's lien. I don't know if that's a politically correct term or not.
Oh,
This
okay.
is
I
what
thought
they
you were talking
call it.
about like the process of it because it
Oh, no,
actually
no, no, no.
sounds
The
like a
process
not
is
bad option.
not at all. The process is very much welcomed because
Okay.
this is not the same thing as you've heard people say, oh, we're just going to put it at the back of your loan. It's not being put at the back of your loan. If you take forbeared
Right.
payments, put them at the back, it means you're paying interest on them.
Right.
This is separate, and you're not paying interest on it,
I like that option
which is
better.
better. Which is better. Here's the problem. Right now, if you want to refinance your home and you are in forbearance, you can't if you have missed any payments at all.
Okay.
So if you skipped a payment, skip 2 payments, you are not eligible to refinance at this point. This is the current Fannie Mae rule. This came out this morning. Now I'm sure this will change and as things develop, and and so right now there's kind of 2 parts to this question. The first part is, can I refinance? The answer is no. If you're in forbearance, you can't if you've missed any payments. The second part of that question though is, if I can't now, when can I? And the answer is, we don't know. But we're waiting for more guidance to come out on that. But it may be something where we have to see a payment record. It might be six mortgage payments made or something like that before you might be eligible to refinance. That's why I say if you have a choice
Okay.
and you don't, forbearance is nice, but you don't have to do it. I'd recommend avoiding it if you can, and just because it's going to make things a little bit more difficult to refinance down the road, or at the very minimum, it's going to take some time.
You know what's really killing me thinking about that, Eric, is how many times we've discussed, like I'll have a conversation with a past client and they didn't take advantage of any of these rates prior to now,
You
and they're
know,
still sitting at 4.5, five
right?
and a half, and you're like, like, and now would have been the best time to be able to get that payment down. Um,
Yeah, I know. I've been
like,
jumping up and
so
down since January, February, saying
yeah,
get this done.
yeah.
Uh,
Oh no, I know you have. I mean,
mm,
anyone who's watched any of our stuff has seen it. But I mean, you're just putting it out there, like, hey, if you have the option of forbearance versus trying to refi, and that is something that would help you just get your payment down and make it easier. I mean, that seems like duh, go do that. Because you don't know if you can do it later if you take the other option, right?
Correct. Correct.
Just getting something down to a more manageable price would
Mhm.
probably be the better thing to
Now,
do if you can, right?
that's right. That's right.
So,
And with this all said, this is like we've used this word fluid. This thing keeps changing almost every day. And I'm
and no wonder call it blue water or whatever the heck it was.
right.
Really fluid. That's
I'm
why we're calling it that.
not sure that
At
we'll
least it's not runny brown fluid, because then we know what that really is. I'm sorry. Sorry.
oh, you just crack yourself up. I know.
To someone has to.
Right. We have to laugh. You know, that's
Right. Yeah.
what
But speaking of some of those things, I don't think I got the jumbo loan amount from you.
oh, those are almost unchanged as well. We're hovering still up there, right around 4.25 is the average for jumbo. So
Okay,
those
I'm still
amounts
tracking my
above,
very, very,
that
techie
is high tech. Yeah,
whiteboard. So techie,
and
yes.
so,
You
yeah,
know what? You do what works. You just find the thing that works for you and you go with it. Because I don't want to have to sit here and
right.
figure it on my computer while we're trying to be on the computer, right?
That's right. That's right. That's like
There's a reason
back
we
when
do
the
whiteboards at tech companies.
I know. Well, back when remember the PDAs, the personal
Oh
digital.
yeah, yeah. I had some of the early ones.
Yeah, my PDA was a spiral notebook and a #2 Ticonderoga. So and I still do that mostly, except I have a pen now instead of a pencil, but that's about it.
Yeah. I remember impressing some people with when I had my PDA and I got the first keyboard that could connect to one, so I could take it on. So I didn't have
Oh
to carry a
yeah.
big heavy laptop around. And people were like, "Ooh!" I'd be in these like meetings with CEOs of software companies. They're like, "Oh, where'd you get that?" I was like,
The
"Yeah,
Palm Pilot. You get the little learning how
that's
to
right, my Palm Pilot."
the
Yeah,
alphabet. Yeah.
love that baby. Not dating myself at
Oh
all.
no, no. No.
Although I'm not, well, anyway, I'm dating, but still, now I'm just dating myself.
Right. Well,
All right. So now that we have that in there, let's, if you don't mind, I'm gonna first I gotta get logged
yeah,
in.
let's see what's going on in the housing.
Yeah, we're gonna look into the housing market because, as you and I have both been looking at these numbers, it's been very interesting. A lot of buyers really jumping in the market if they can.
Mhm.
And so we're seeing lots of activity. Give me a quick second here. I'm about to get on to share screen. Pardon me. All right. So what we've been looking at all along here is this market watch data on the left-hand side. So I'm going to update my little chart here. So new listings. I have to remember to use my elbow or something else. So I'm going to do that. So we can see that we're up to 2236 right now. Now, May 5th, these numbers are constantly changing, right? So 2236 new this week. May 5th, we were at 1493. So we are starting to see, because that's the thing, is a bunch of humans tend to kind of set artificial timelines for themselves, right? There's like no real perfect time to ever put your house on the market. But people will set these deadlines in their head. So what we're seeing is May is one of the months that a lot of people have, because especially like when school here gets out around June, they put their house on the market now in the hopes that during the time that they're on market and then also going through contract, they can finish by the time the kids are done with school. And then when they want to make their move, it's easier, right? And even though kids are at home right now and doing their, version of homeschooling, people still, they want to, they've got a schedule they've got to try and keep, right? With kids doing stuff. So not a surprise to see that the listing count has gone up just a little bit in this second week, because the more we get to June, the more we're going to see it pop up a little bit, right? So back on market, we're at 309, which is down a little bit. I don't think I put that one on my list here, so I'm going to write this one down. Back on market, 309. Back 10 days ago, we were at 360. Again, those are ones where like maybe a transaction failed or someone took it off to have some work done, any of those kinds of scenarios. Listing price reduced
Yeah,
is,
that's gone way up.
yeah, it's at 890, right? And just 10 days ago, we were at 765. Right. And that is not too much of a surprise because as we see more inventory coming on the market, if they didn't get that early activity, they're realizing, ooh, maybe we need to, get a little more realistic. Listing price increased is up. Excuse me, it's not up. It's almost the same. It's 138. It was 144 10 days ago. But pending sales continues to also rise. So we're at 3182 right now. And 10 days ago, that was at 2939. So we're almost 10% up on that. And then the solds, interesting, 1355. And 10 days ago, we were at 1510. Again, given when the timeline was that we had you can't go look at property, this is about the right timeline of that because that was early April that we were seeing all of those changes. And so that would kind of fit perfectly in this timeline that it's still part of that 17,000 transactions that were already in process. And we weren't adding on to any of that. Because remember, I'm going to go back to here's April 3rd when we started doing this, right? Solds were at 1819, new listings at 1337, right? April 21st, or excuse me, I guess I wasn't tracking all those numbers at the same time, but I was tracking more of your numbers instead of mine. So I'm glad I'm starting to do this right now. But basically, we had a period of time where we couldn't go show any property. And then when we could, it was kind of a slow trickle of people coming out because some people were still nervous about coming out. They were a lot of agents were still refining their procedures. Some agents just quit showing it all because when you look at what the average age of a real estate agent is, which is 56, a lot of them are on the older side, and so they didn't want to go expose themselves, right? So we had a lot of different dynamics kind of impacting things, but right now we're getting back to, honestly, this is like pre-COVID. This is about the numbers that we were talking about at the beginning of this year, as we got into the new year and you see an uptick in new listings, right? Like once you get out of the holiday season. So not overly surprised. It does show that we have a busy marketplace. When Eric and I were just preparing our show for this week, one of the things that you brought, which was very interesting, was that mortgage news article to our studio. And in that, just since the coronavirus has been really impacting industry, the Seattle market has seen about a 10% increase in prices.
Yeah, it's up. Oh, yeah.
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 So, in fact, actually, I think it was 11% for us, and it was San Jose that was 10%.
Mhm.
So, and that helped answer the question. Like we talked last week, I said, hey, I have this, client who's very nervous about what's going on and worried about what is going on with interest rates, worried about, she was like, oh, I think prices are going to go backward. Uh-uh. And that is how I had to point out to her, was like, okay, first of all, here's this news that we just received that is showing statistically, yes, things are still going up. Here's the volume that's still happening. And the fact that new construction has been waylaid is going to enhance the issue of not having enough inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So builders are probably loving it for the inventory they're working on right now, if it wasn't already all sold out, because they're going to be like, yeah, baby. But they're hurting from the standpoint of they can't begin any new projects because those are being held off. And that will eventually impact pricing over time. Right. So supply and demand, and there's still plenty of demand. So if you are someone, in fact, I will just mention that this morning, thank you to some friends of mine who called and said that they have an adult daughter. They would like to have work with me to buy a house. We had this conversation about timing because they, went and kind of looked at a house in Des Moines a couple days ago, I guess, when their daughter was off work. And they they said, well, she just signed a lease, but, she might be willing to break it, but maybe she'll wait till next year when she, gets close to renewal. And so then we had to have this conversation about what's going on inventory wise, pricing wise, what's her affordability going to be at that stage? And will we have these incredible low rates still? Like, will the Fed still be interfering in the market a year from now?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Those are the big unknowns. So, so we're going to set up a Zoom call because we're still doing consults. I mean, that's part of the adjustments and things. So actually what I kind of like about being able to do the Zoom call consults, honestly, for anyone who's watching this, it means I can do more for you because I'm not in my car driving to meet you somewhere. We can actually help more people right now because of the fact that we can do more consults, not spending time in cars, just going to offices,
Right.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we can bring more.
Here, but man, I'm getting sick of sitting in this chair. Get one of those stand-up desks or something, because holy cow.
You should get one of those stand-up desks. I have one. They're nice.
Yeah.
But I also get to go stand up and go out and look at property. So, there you go. But, and I also want to touch on another topic because this has been coming up a little bit as well. Because there is kind of the misinformation, I guess I want to say, of what the marketplace is doing. And let me get off my share screen here. There's a lot of people, there is some flexibility, right? Like these numbers and everything that we're talking about right now, that has, the 20% that's selling really fast, that has been true for a little over a year now, right? We had our little slowdown between June 2018 and February of 2019, but then it picked back up. And so we went from, in 2017, 2012 to 2017, we had a lot of 60 to 70% of all the houses were selling pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. A lot of them with multiple offers, lots of, hyper appreciation going on, that kind of thing. We still have good appreciation. I mean, for cripe's sake, 10%, 11%, that's ridiculous.
During a pandemic?
Yeah.
Unheard of.
Yeah, that's nuts. Yeah. So, those things are still impacting our marketplace. There is some leverage available, but it just depends on the property and the people and the motivation. You have to remember, motivation is a very big part of a real estate sale, because if a seller doesn't have to sell, like they're just thinking they're going to sell right now, if you get too ridiculous with your demands, they're going to just say pound sand.
Right.
We actually, I'll give an example. One of our clients in the Edmonds area, very North Edmonds, close to Mukilteo, she was on market for 45 days. And, many people would automatically think, oh, what's wrong with it? Nothing was wrong with it. It was, for a lot of people, they didn't like part of the downstairs layout because of the kitchen being walled off from the living area. And a lot of people like that open concept, right? So, but we knew there was nothing wrong with her place. And so she was just patient, because we had a bunch of people try and send in lowball offers and we just refused them because we're like, nothing is wrong with this house. So we waited and we waited, and we ended up getting her a deal that totally met her needs, met their needs. And it was, and because she did have motivation to do things, but she didn't have the next place yet. So it didn't really matter what her timing was. So truly understanding what is going on in that seller's mind and life can make a big difference on whether you're going to be successful with your transaction and your negotiations and the things that come up during inspections and all of it, right? So it helps to be working with people who really try and go find out those motivations, because it's not always just a numbers game, right? You can try and do that if you're going to be completely emotionless about it. Maybe you'll be on the investor side of things, but I can tell you for a fact, most of the investors I ever deal with also get just as, they like to think that they don't, but they do, like, cause they'll get all, oh, I can't believe, they'll be very upset about something. And you're like, really? I thought this was emotionless because it's just an investment,
Funny about that. Yeah. No, they get into the hunt just like anybody.
Yeah, exactly. So
I think every real estate transaction is 60% emotion. It really can be.
You know what? And that's the whole thing. As humans, we are emotional creatures. You know, as much as we love to think that we're very cerebral, you know, like I'm reading this book about stoicism and you know how and it's all about, you know, how you're supposed to be able to try and stay even keeled. It's not that you can't have emotions, it's this you can't be overtaken by emotion, right? You're going to feel things, and how you respond and react is the deal, right? And how successful you're going to be at something, right? Because it's like the difference of like, you know, if you and I, Eric, you know, if we get into it, and we've had this happen. I mean, for Christ's sake, I've known you 17 years, more than any person I've ever been married to, and you know, and
Right.
so yeah, we have these moments every. Yeah, I know, right? Like, oh yeah, you know. I'm glad I'm not stuck in COVID quarantine with you.
God. Yeah. No
No,
kidding.
I'm teasing, but you know, but the reality is, like, there's times that we'll even get to loggerheads on something, and you know, and most of the time we're pretty even keeled. But every once in a while, I'll be like, oh, what are you saying? What are you implying? You know, and that emotion is what will come out. You know,
Of
and if you can
course.
manage that emotion, you can get to the bottom of what's going on. You can get to hopefully
Because we're human.
good resolution. Exactly. And so, you know, real estate and everything involved in it is very much a big part of the human condition and how we react and respond. And honestly, if you're looking even at like Maslow's law, you know, shelter, you know, our safety, shelter, you know, all of that with our family, taking care of that, it really is on that base part of the pyramid too. So, you know, we will get emotional about it. Why people are freaking out about, you know, rents and mortgages and things like that is because it's putting our safety and security and our housing at risk, our shelter. So it's a natural response to have the fears. I do hope that anyone who's watching this, you're taking good self-care. My team is talking a lot about how we're handling things physically and emotionally, and you know, dealing with our, you know, mental spaces, because it's important. You know, there is fear out there, and our job, you know, as guides in real estate is to help you understand what's going on, help mitigate the situations, and keep those emotions in check, because we know you're going to have them, and we have to take care of ourselves to take care of you,
Mhm.
right? So we talk a lot about those kinds of things, and you know, and we do bring it up to our customers. In fact, we just spent, you know, a great hour and a half with my team yesterday trying to find a better way, even at the closing of a transaction, for the transition. You know, because everyone on my team knows that the key transfer is like the bane of my existence, because you can't control every little element, you know, that's involved in it, you know. And you know, we had a problem come up, and it was completely outside of our control. We had this closing earlier this week. Eric, you and I worked together with this customer, and you know, we negotiated a great deal. We beat out two other offers to get the house. We got $20,000 in concessions from the seller on a bunch of work, so her closing costs were covered, her rate got bought down, she got work prepaid so that she could get it taken care of, you know, right away.
You
You
got
know,
real creative on how to spend all of that. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so we had all these wonderful things, but then one of those damn contractors, you know, showed up early the day we were supposed to transfer keys. Like she was not even full owner yet, and one of them showed up early and did something, you know, that affected the house with their big box truck.
Oh no.
And
Oh,
so that what should have been the most joyous thing got waylaid, got, you know, and it was upsetting, and it was frustrating, and you know, and there wasn't anything I could do at 6 o'clock at night, you know, on that day. But you know, the next day we were on it. I was contacting the company and getting the name of the GM so that she could reach out and make sure that they make it right, and you know, all the things that are part of it. But you know, those things come up. They absolutely come up. And so, you know, we always look at every single situation like that and go, is there anything we could have done better? Is there anything that we could have helped with? Is there any, and again, we don't have control over every part of that process because especially like on a closing day, all of that is really between the escrow company, the county recording office, and the lender. It's not
Yeah.
your real estate
And
agent.
I think this in at this time too, there needs to be a little bit of flexibility with all the parties in a real estate transaction, just because things do happen. This week
Yeah.
alone, I
Mhm.
had one transaction where after a week, the appraiser backed out of completing the appraisal because she refused to inspect the inside of the house. This is like a $1.2 million home.
Why?
She didn't want to go inside because of COVID. So all of a sudden we have to
What's
scramble
about
and
the house?
yes. And
Oh,
so at last minute we have to scramble and find another appraiser. It's like, will you go in? He's like, yeah, I'll go in. It's like, okay, great, you got the job. We had one other transaction where the escrow company is so short staffed right now that it's taken 4 days to get the information that should normally show up in about an hour,
right.
so that we can balance, get our numbers, get our documents and everything prepared. That was 4 days that we spent continuously harassing, haranguing, requesting, escalating, trying to get somebody to respond. But when there's nobody in the office, you can't.
Difficult thing to do.
So
Well,
that's these sort of things are going to happen. They're just going to
well,
come
and
up.
another example of that, Eric, is we have that happening right now with another transaction that we are anticipating will close today, but it was supposed to close yesterday. And that's because we have an out of state client. So they had to do remote signing in Alaska.
Yeah.
And then the docs were being sent back via FedEx, which normally would show up on time. But because we have all these issues in the shipping, world right now, they got waylaid in California.
Hmm.
So we had to talk with everybody about that because here's the sad part. We had everything that was under control and like everything was going well. And so we're figuring out when the key transfer is going to happen for the young man. They're buying it for their son to live in, getting out of college. And, everything looked great. They sent their docs out. Everyone's like, wonderful. Yay. We should be totally on time. So he books a flight for Monday to get in, get the keys. He's got to drive to Bozeman, get his stuff from the college, and then come back, right? And the thing is because the shipping tracking is not showing it right away that it's already out of California. Like we had to do an addendum for the extension of, well, we didn't know if we should do it for today. So we went ahead and did it for Monday. And then we had to talk to all the parties to say, look, he's already booked a flight. Even if we don't have recording, can he go pick the keys up? Because we're expecting everything to still close, but he can't move his flight now.
Right.
So how do we all work together? And because we couldn't use, there's a new form that I know you've probably seen, Eric. It's
Force
the
majeure. Yeah.
the force majeure, and this does not apply.
Uh,
This is right. That's a shipping problem.
right. Yeah. Yeah.
So they're not going to say, oh, that's because an act of God happened and someone at FedEx just didn't get it off the thing. Like, that's not it. It doesn't work that way. So in this situation, thankfully, we had very reasonable people who had a goal to all get done together, and everything aligns just fine. Even though early this morning, it didn't say that the shipping had happened. It sounds like it is in now, so we will still close here, and then we'll have everything all set up for our customer, no problem, on Monday. But you can see how these things, we don't have 100% control over everything. So the thing we can control is our emotions and how we respond,
So
right? And working with people who have been there, have the experience, know how to work through it, don't lose their minds when it happens, right? And you think of the hurdles and how do we get there and how do we handle it if it does occur. That's a big part of the battle right there.
absolutely.
So anyway, so speaking of all those fun things, I got to go take care of an inspection response for a customer, where it was another one of those very interesting kinds of things. We did get a very interesting process in getting into contract and things that were given up, and my clients are still getting a good deal. But now on the inspection, they're going to do a trade. There's like a lot of very tiny little things that would be on the inspection for us to handle, like a furnace servicing and some small plumbing issues and things like that. And then, but the seller had a bunch of actually very nice furniture and a TV inside the house. My clients were like, yeah, if they want to just leave that stuff for us, we'll take care of this. And he's like, and he's in China. So he's like,
Oh, all
great,
right.
sounds good. so,
Yeah.
so yeah, so that's that's what we're writing up today is all the details that go along with that. So we're like, okay, all right, sounds great. We're moving on. So all good stuff. So anyway, I didn't see that we had anyone. Although I'm going to check my phone real quick to make sure we didn't have somebody ask a question because I know sometimes people toss one in on us. Not seeing one, but again, we do throw it out there if there's particular topics or anything that you want to know. We've had people ask about particular market areas, things like that. If there's something that you want us to talk about on these shows and or onto our radio program, any guests, we do actually have some estate planners that we're talking to that we're going to end up having on as a guest. I do have some contractors who finally have some availability. It usually is really, really hard to get the time of a contractor, but because of what's going on, some of them have a little more flexibility. So we want to have an opportunity to have one or two of them on one of our shows to talk about like best practices when you're working with a contractor, because there are people doing projects right now or preparing, or like Eric had recommended for a long time, like, hey, get your line of credit now if you got stuff you want to do, have money in the bank and or get work done. Great opportunity for us to get some feedback from that marketplace itself on how to have the best experience, because that I can tell you, again, speaking emotions, when someone's coming into your house and they're tearing things up and they're doing stuff, working through a remodel, especially when you're living in the home, can be very jarring and difficult. In fact, when anyone's ever looking to build a home or do a major, major remodel, one of my first questions is, how much do you like your spouse?
That's right.
you know, so make sure you still like them and that you have processes in place to do this, because it's very stressful. So we're going to see if we can get some really good advice and best practices. And if you have questions when we do that, bring them. I just sent 3 contractors to one of my friends because she and her husband are looking at doing some remodeling right now. So gave her 3 great people to talk to, and they'll be moving forward with that. So I'll be sure to tell her when we're doing this one so she can get that advice when we have it. So anyway, if you have questions for me directly, email reba@teamreba.com. My cell is 206-910-3429.
You can catch me, Eric, at ericismybanker.com, or you can call me at 206-915-3742.
All right. Fantastic. Well, everyone have a great weekend and a happy Friday to y'all. And we'll be back next Tuesday at 1 p.m. And if you want, Open House with Team Reba, the radio show, is going to be on Saturday, 2 to 3, Sunday, 3 to 4 on AM 1590. The Answer.
All right. Yep. Have a great weekend, everyone.